Well, hey, thank you so much. I was so excited to have this conversation with you both, this dynamic duo. And really the exciting thing is like I haven't really seen, you guys have taken it kind of to that level where you literally are taking traditional Chinese herbs, infusing it into the nurturing aspect of soup. It's like recipes, do this, get this benefit. You really took that healing as medicine, or healing food as medicine, and really made it applicable, and delicious. So it's really a cool kind of bridge that you've created. And so, like, I read a little bit of your history. Obviously, your mother, Rose, and Genevieve, your grandmother, and kind of the soup. You had a lot of soup influence. So talk to it. Maybe describe the audience a little bit, Rose, and how this inspiration came up as a child, and then led to this next phase.
I've been, we grew up with it, so for generations, all this knowledge has been handed down. And so whenever we don't feel well, we either have a drink, an herbal drink, mixture of different kind of flowers, roots, and all that, or we'll have a soup, and a soup is definitely better tasting than a bitter concoction, of course. That's why I never, form a habit of taking pills, because I'm so used to my own ways, and it's natural, so there's no overdosing, and very little side effects if there's any at all. But during the pandemic, we have a lockdown, and I thought, we have nothing to do. What are we going to do? Might as well make it more productive. And I thought, at that time, we don't have the vaccine and nothing, during the early months. And I told Genevieve, I say, I need to write down everything, because my friends always ask me to, my daughters always ask me to, instead of keeping it in my head, and how to boost our immune system against all the virus, all the bacteria that's around us. So I get together with Genevieve. She's a real writer. I'm quite an amateur. So we start writing, and this is the only time she ever listens to me.
We wrote the book during the beginning of the pandemic in like March and April of 2020. I had actually gotten into a car accident during this time. So my car was totaled. So I really did have nothing else to do. I mean, I certainly couldn't leave the house. I looked terrible. So I knew I had to write something. I'm a journalist, so I'm very prolific anyways. And, obviously with the pandemic, it makes you think about life and death and, how many years we have left on the planet. And, my mom is in her 60s, and throughout the years, we've always spoken about getting her Chinese herbal soup recipes down on paper for the friends and family. And so I just knew it was a great time to come out with a book with these recipes, especially since most of these recipes are in Chinese on the internet. And I think that we're past that point of just having things relegated to just Chinese people. So I thought it was important to have an English speaking guide for not just Chinese people, but for everybody, all sorts of Asians around the world who may not be as proficient in Chinese as Chinese people. So that's really why I think the book is special.
And the book is simple and easy to understand.
Yeah. I mean, understanding what you give enough context to, of like, hey, what do you perceive you have? What are you suffering from? Here's some literal food and recipes that you can apply yourself that are the essential foundation of human health, period, right? That interaction
Yes.
between whole
Yes.
plants, which
Right.
is, you know, thousands of years in traditional Chinese medicine, and then dating back before it was even traditional Chinese medicine. It has always been the association with herbs and the interaction, which I always think is just an incredible, if you don't think miracles exist, just think about it. The earth created us, and then it
Right.
has planted around its beautiful globe
Right.
allies and plants that we actually can take in. Not to mention there's some that can certainly kill us and make us hallucinate, but there's certainly this support system that we have. I would like to get your take, because I want to unpack this for people a little bit, because people may have heard, you know, about acupuncture, they heard about Tai Chi, they heard about herbs, they hear about traditional Chinese medicine. And then, you know, let's describe that a little bit, because it is vastly, and maybe I'm stating the obvious for people, but I just want to state the obvious. We have the traditional Chinese medicine, and I want you to add your color to it too, please, because that is a systems approach to health, right? So it's not looking at from a Western perspective. We have now kind of accepted this idea that everything's down to its individual parts, right? You have heart disease, you have kidney problems, you have diabetes, and it's kind of treating these things in silos, which is actually the quite opposite approach to, I think, all of what real healing is anyway, but certainly traditional Chinese medicine. So Rose, I'd love to hear your take on that side of things and the holism that traditional Chinese medicine has, and also what you put together.
Well, I put together in modern terms is culinary medicine, you know, but we have it for years, of thousands of years, just that culinary medicine is something new, now adopted and starting to adopt. But just like you say, you know, the universe was created for us to survive, which is beautiful, you know, because we have all these things around us that we used to know and used to do, and we all forgot about it after some time, you know. Now we are modern age, and so we use modern medicine, pills, you know, lotions, stuff like that, which is full of chemicals. But you think about that, all those chemicals really derive from the natural materials. It's just it's more concentrated and it's more focused on one or two items. Whereas in the natural world, we have a mixture of all the natural chemicals together, which is really the better way, you know. And I read about your website and the work you do about superfoods. So let's start with some superfoods on in our book that we introduced, which is very natural. You know, like we use lily, or we call it lotus a lot. You look at the lotus plant itself. The lotus seeds are very good for your heart and calming down your nerves. So if you have a heart problem, you can make a lotus dessert or a lotus soup, you know, and even eat it as a snack. And it's very tasty, but nobody knows it's good for the heart, you know. Now we start talking about. And it also calms your nerves. So if you're very anxious or you have so much anxiety during this pandemic, which everybody has, including myself, okay, if you drink a cup of lotus tea, you know, with lotus seeds in it, or have the dessert after dinner, it makes you sleep better. So those are things that I think is important to let people know. And talk about the lotus plant again. You know, the lotus leaves itself is very important in driving out summer heat, you know, during the summertime, so that you don't get sick, you know, from it. And let's talk about the lotus root. The lotus root is also something in the soup that we use. And if you grind up the lotus root fresh as a juice, it's very sweet. And it can stop nose bleeding, you know, which a lot of kids have. So those are the kinds of food I want to introduce into our system, you know, through our book, and let people familiarize themselves. and then why they are sick. I also talk about the various reasons why they're sick. Like in the book, I talk about air conditioning, which is good and bad for our bodies, because when you go out from you go into an air conditioning room, which is 70 degrees or 65 degrees, while the heat outside is 90 degrees, your natural sweating system got stopped instantly, and the sweat is blocked and trapped underneath our skin. And of course, the dirt cannot come out, with the natural process. The toxins are supposed to come out, right? So that caused a lot of skin problems later on. And so if we want to just in daily life try to make this a smoother transition, like putting a coat on or walking slower, don't just jump in from one extreme temperature to another, that always benefit us. So people don't realize what they're doing hurts themselves. So, and something that we don't talk about in the book, I have it on our website, which is www.healingsoups.com. We also talk about a lot of drinks, how to help us relieve heat or other illnesses that we have. And I just put on something new on our website that's a Persimmon Leaves Tea. And the Persimmon leaves is long known to help to build up the strength of our blood vessel wall, which is very important. If our blood vessel wall is healthy, then the circulation is better and you cannot have cancer cell attached to it as easily. So it has many functions, of doing. And recently there are studies that show that because persimmon leaves contain quercetin and vitamin C, it fights against COVID. Wow, that's a big deal. So because we already wrote the book, so I put it on our website. And Genevieve, you can go on to talk about the other superfoods that we included in our book.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of superfoods, but I guess to answer your original question, so Healing Herbal Soups is our book, and it's a book of Chinese herbal soup recipes, and they're all infused with our knowledge about traditional Chinese medicine. Essentially, the book teaches you about traditional Chinese medicine and how to incorporate herbs into your soup making so that you can better weather the seasons and improve your immune system. It's a tradition that's handed down through generations in our culture. We're Southern Chinese, so we're talking about Hong Kong, Southern China. And I think that a lot of people who are not familiar with traditional Chinese medicine, they don't know what it is. They think about like the bitter herbs that people drink when they go to the herbal pharmacy. And I just want to say it's not that. We are using some of those herbs and we're mixing them into formulations in a safe, gentle manner, so people can drink it like a healing broth, like a bone broth. That's what it tastes like. So I think that's about it. But there are other superfoods. I'm a huge fan of monk fruit. We have a recipe in our book for monk fruit water, and it's for smoke inhalation to clear out your lungs. We have a lot of fires in Los Angeles. And at least for the past 5 years, I've noticed a lot of metals, toxins in the air. And this was a recipe that came to us through another Chinese herbalist who was dealing with some very important people in China, and they were all heavy smokers. And he came up with this recipe for young monk fruit water to drink to clear out the lungs from pollution and toxins. So that's another one that I'm a fan of.
Not to mention good tasting. So that's
that one tastes good. You might see monk fruit in your health food store in America, especially as like a sweetener now, but really it is an actual fruit, that's used in Chinese medicine for bronchitis, clearing out mucus, things of that nature.
It's funny. I looked at it years ago, Lo Han Gao, right? And I when people were saying, "Have you heard of monk fruit?" I didn't know the name, the common name, for so long, and I was finally like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." I like saying Lo Han Gao more than I like saying monk fruit. So
that's what we say too. For us, monk fruit became a new word the last few years.
Right.
But this is the young monk fruit that we are talking about, the two kinds.
Yeah. So, this is a super important conversation because it's looking at health, and everyone listening, looking at our health from less reactive places and more proactive, playing the long game. Not to mention, you can eat these foods, drink these soups, and get the benefits now for sure, as well as, number one, there's no side effects, right? Of the list of, because they're not drugs. It's like, again, we have to demystify some of this stuff. Like, oh, I don't want to take traditional Chinese medicine. Listen, all food, an apple has 300 beneficial compounds to it. So I don't, because people, it's so weird. People go down an aisle and buy processed crap food that is full of chemicals and preservatives and all that stuff. And then when you present them with natural superfoods, plants, herbs, botanicals, and somehow they freak out, right? So I just want to say, like, the recipes you have here are delicious and safe, and they're medicinally packed, right? They're nutritionally packed.
Yeah, we actually partnered up with a professor in Hong Kong who is a TCM, a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, to vet all of our recipes. So yes, I would say that these recipes are all safe. I know that even amongst Chinese people, they do get scared about using Chinese herbs. And this is, why we had to hire, a consultant, just to make sure our formulations were safe. There's really nothing to be scared about. It's so mild, the things we use, and we use such small amounts. You think about using 1 ounce of an herb, and 8 cups of water, that's really diluted. Right. And we always ask people not to eat the herbs straight up. You just drink the broth. So I don't think anything's going to happen to you.
Right.
Exactly. And a lot of those herbs are actually flowers and fruits, so you can eat it raw. So why can't you use it in the broths and the drinks?
Exactly. And that, again, that's the demystifying aspect of this stuff. It's like these are our first medicines, and playing, again, the emphasis here is playing the longer game in terms of our health. I say this all the time, we're all right now on this podcast sitting in the choices we've made from our past. This is the manifestation of those choices. So the choices we make now to better ourselves, right? To drink good soups, to eat good foods, to get good rest, to listen to our bodies, that is then creating the seed of our future. So that's what I love about this. Like, listen, I've tasted a lot of bitters, tannins, pungents.
You have.
Yeah, I have. And what you're doing here, which is why I celebrate it so much, is like, I will eat those things and consume those teas because I know they're good for me. And I that's me, but I'm in a rare class of people. But you have taken these recipes and created an alchemy here that is delicious, that is healthy, that is medicinal, and delivering in a way that people can instantly utilize. And that's what I love. It's like, because if you were to give some of these herbs directly, it would be hard.
People would do nothing. They would turn the other way.
Right.
And that is our hope, is that people will make these very traditional Chinese soup recipes and think about their own health and say, hey, maybe I should look into traditional Chinese medicine and see what it does for me. It's to take people through that, because we want everybody to be healthy too. We live in such a polluted world now, and we really have to take steps back or steps forward.
Yeah. Well, it's like looking at, it's funny. I'm working on a second book right now, and it's literally all about this flip of the coin, this modern, I do these fatal conveniences.
Yes.
And I'm really like astonished the more I look into it. Clothing, personal care items, Wi-Fi, all of this pollutants has mounted in such a huge capacity that it's the flip side of health, and it's the underbelly of our society, and we need herbs more than ever to chelate and to refresh and to flow the body through some of these challenges, because there's 80,000 new chemicals emitted in our environment every year, and of that about 9% are tested. So it's like we need to rely more on nature and less on this weird the healthcare world should be labeled differently, because
we agree.
It's not health. It's reactive principles.
I tell people all the time, I know when I mean, obviously I've been interested in herbal medicine for decades, but, when I first started out being interested, I would take, an herb individually and see its effect on my body. And then I would read about it. And once that came together for me, and I'm like, oh, I notice I have less mucus when I take this herb. I'm like, that's what this does for my body. And I kind of filed it away, and slowly an encyclopedia would build in my head. And I do that with, vitamins and supplements as well. And now I'm like, you know what? I actually don't have to go to the doctor, because I remember when I took this in the past, it helped me do this. And that's what we want people to do. We start you off with different herbs. There's about, Mom, what do you think? Like there's like 50 plus herbs that we have in our field guide, where we have pictures of these herbs and their Chinese and English names as well, which I think is unique, because you could take it into the store and be like, I want this. And then there's no language barriers, or you can go to our website, which is actually healingherbalsoups.com, and to buy these ingredients. But we want people to see, to smell, to touch, and to know what it's about before putting it into their bodies.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rose.
Well, it is important, I think, as we put in a delicious way, so there's nothing to be scared of, and you can try out different soups. We have 50 soups in the book, at times that you feel like it. And then you gradually realize that, hey, I drank this and I feel better the next day, or, or I sleep better tonight, Then hopefully people will be trained in their minds to accept this more, and then pay more attention to all the natural foods we have,
Yeah, it's the mind. It's so important, this mindfulness, right? That we've kind of let go of, right? And we just kind of shovel things in, expect the body to work, and when it doesn't, we're like, oh my God, it's tragic. But now we found so much in the epidemiology, like the things that we do over time weigh a lot heavier on our genetics, right? So what are we doing consistently over time? And so again, like the aspects speak a little bit to this too, because again, traditional Chinese medicine also is not, it's about the flow of the body, but it's also psychological. There's all of these different intricacies, again, holism rather than reductionism. So speak to that too, and some of the recipes that may aid in feeling better, good moods, things like that.
Well, we have a lot of requests about anxiety because of that. We use a tea, a very special, simple tea. We just mix 3 flowers together. It's chrysanthemum, rosebud, and another one. And so I forgot. I have so much.
It's because we have 2 flower teas. Maybe that's why.
Right. So, but you can add a little honey to it, but those are pretty, to even look at, and it helps you to calm down and feel better, happier, You'll be surprised. Your mood
That's a
does
very
change.
pretty tea. It's called the
Yeah.
flower tea in our book, not to be confused with the 3-flower tea. So this one has jasmine, the one that my
Oh, I
mom is
see.
talking about.
Right.
Yeah, it's very pretty. It's for people to sleep better, I would say, and to relax them.
Right.
Uh,
But it helps you to have a mood change, other than calming your nerves. And so some of the things that we keep talking about, like we use Chinese yam a lot. And Chinese yam is actually just like, how do I say, potato type, if you just cook it in fresh and stir fry it, it tastes better than potato, slightly, but the same kind, you can stir fry it in the cuisine or you can put it in a soup. And why do we talk about it? It's very popular in all our recipes, in most of our recipes.
It's the most popular herb, I would say. Yeah, item
Yes.
in our book.
And you can never overdose on it because it's just like potato, okay? But it helps the spleen. We talk about the spleen a lot, which is very ignored in Western culture for some reason. Because how is the spleen important? Most people can't even answer you for that. But you take all the food, all the nutrition, all the vitamins, okay, it goes into your stomach, right? First, and then to be digested. And then what? They go to your spleen, because the spleen is the place where they filter out all these things and send the nutrients into absorbable form through the rest of your body. So the spleen is super important, which nobody talks about. But the spleen is the distribution center. So we use Chinese yam because it's very good for your spleen. It builds up your strength of your spleen. Those are things that I think we should make people realize more, instead of, Western medicine, they talk about one organ only. But in Chinese medicine, we talk about how the stomach and the spleen works together. And so when they send the nutrients out to different parts of the body, how those other parts will work together, like our kidneys. It's not just the kidney itself. The kidney is responsible for other functions that we realize, it's tied to your gut system, it's tied to your intestines and so forth.
Oh, you can get the Chinese yam for all the listeners out there and readers. You can get Chinese yam at a Chinese supermarket if you live in a city that has a big Chinese community, or you can get it dried online through an herbal pharmacy or through our website.
Yeah, again, that's a super important aspect of it too, because we have growing digestive disorders going, like exploding, right? So it's also so much about, and I'm glad you brought this up, because it's also, of course, important what you're eating, but what do you have built up? Do you have the digestive fire, meaning all of these systems in line to be able to break down these foods to then utilize these foods? So it isn't also just about eating the perfect food. It's about building your body up so that it can digest, break down, and utilize the food. And that again is something where we're like, again, this Western culture is like, oh, it's that thing's not good. Let's cut it out. Let's treat it. But yet you don't even know where the line of breakdown happened, right? So that's what I love this approach and your approach to doing this. It's an alchemy in these soups to be able to build the body back so it flows again.
Exactly. And liquid forms are much easier to absorb than like a piece of meat or something. It gets into your system right away, whether you have a strong digestive system or not. So soups and drinks are popular because of that reason. Some people are healthier than others, some are stronger than others, but liquid and soup always go into your system right away.
Very nurturing. Rose,
Yeah.
you look amazing, by the way. I want, I want, and Genevieve, of course, you do
It's
too.
okay. It's not about me.
But I'm just saying, to make the point. Take us through, Rose, a day in the life of you. Like, what are you doing upon?
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
like, well,
Wow.
not necessarily everything, but what
Yeah,
what your liquid intake is, what your food intake is. Take us through that little journey, and maybe give us the time that you're consuming your things as well.
my life is very simple. Okay, in the morning I have Tai Chi and I stand in my garden, next to the pine trees to breathe in the oxygen. Oh, that is very important to me, the sunshine and the pine trees. And then I start on my breakfast. It's interesting because I think I lead a lifestyle that very few people live, but they can do it, like standing next to a tree and breathing oxygen in the morning and have the early sunshine, on yourself. You have the vitamin D right there, right? By the way, you guys get vitamin D easier than us because yellow color people like us need to stand for 2 hours, whereas you guys can only stand for 20 minutes and get everything you want. Okay.
Right.
So we have to make an effort. Okay. And then my breakfast, I have a very special breakfast. I eat I use a germinated rice to cook a porridge for me, and I put in lotus seeds every morning, ground up, okay, into it, and I have Chinese yam ground up into it and mix it together. So those are important food because it not only gives you fiber, it helps your gut to absorb much easier. And it has been tested on patients that have chemotherapy and they don't have the appetite to eat things and they can't absorb. But if you eat germinated rice, ground up in a blender and mix it in water, they can actually drink it. It only takes a few days and it works wonders in your system. So that's how I realized that it's good for normal people like us as well, right? And then I have a sea cucumber. Okay.
Oh, sea cucumber is great. If anybody out there needs to know, I mean,
It's
sea
a
cucumbers
delicacy.
are a delicacy in Chinese culture.
Yes, you can cook it, stir fry, stew it. But, sea cucumber is the only animal that it can regenerate itself. So if you eat it, you probably can regenerate some of your cells inside, who knows? But I know sea cucumber is superb for people who have kidney problems. This is a story my herbalist told me. He once had a patient that needs to go on dialysis. But before they schedule him for dialysis, he went to see my herbalist. And then my herbalist said, oh, why don't you have sea cucumber? Sea cucumber is great for kidneys. He ate one per day for 3 weeks. And then he doesn't need dialysis anymore. Can you believe that?
It helps to regenerate your cells in a really quick manner.
Yes.
And it's a superfood, if you ask me.
Yes, it is a superfood. So you can buy it in the Chinese supermarket. We have it as we put it in soup in some of our recipes. But I think this is something that you should know. So I have that every day, and of course, I think because it contains so much nutrients. All women, especially women, I think all people care about how they age. Okay, and it contains a lot of nutrients inside that helps you age slower. So that is very important as we all like to look younger and feel good, right?
Internally, it helps you to age slower too. I just want to say, yeah.
Yes, that
which is very important.
Yeah.
And at lunchtime and dinner time, I just eat a lot of vegetables. I have my soup for every meal. It has to be balanced, but my daily intake is mostly a lot of fresh herbs, like the the vegetable dish I love best is stir frying lily bulbs with Chinese yam. So try that out. It's very tasty. It's good for vegans, vegan purposes. Okay. And I don't eat that much meat, to be honest. I eat a lot of fish more. Fish more is something very more important because it contains natural collagen. It helps you to look young. Your skin, it has a lot of vitamin A. So it helps your skin looks younger, and all those things, are very natural, and you can never overdose on it. So that's my daily routine.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I love it. People are gonna be inspired. I mean, I need some germinated rice and some yams now. I'm excited.
I know people think it's a joke, but like we actually have always consciously practiced culinary eating. I mean, medicinal eating. I mean, and it's in all the dishes too. Yeah. The only thing I would say I do differently than my mom is she does Tai Chi, but I do like sound tones. Like you say different tones. It's in Chinese medicine, you say different tones for different organs in your body, your heart, your kidney, the triple energizer, things like that. And I do tone, and it's very good for building chi in the body.
Is that a daily practice then?
Yeah, it's a daily practice.
Yeah,
for maintenance. You can Google tones, traditional Chinese medicine, and see what tones to say for different organs in your body.
Cool. And a sleeping pattern is important. In our book, we have a chapter talking about when to sleep, because people who have different issues need especially to rest at certain time periods of the day. Like, most people like to go to a gym after work and all that. Actually, that's a very poor scheduling, because your body is extremely tired at that time, after a day of work. So if you want to stress it out more, like going on treadmills and all that, it's actually a stress to your heart and all that. Those are actually time that you should rest up first, or maybe just take a light walk. The best time to do any kind of exercise is actually in the morning. So you have to get up early to do that. I know it's hard. But, sleeping well is very important. We talk about it. Between 11 and 2 p.m. are the most important time to sleep, because that's the resting time for our most vital organ, which is our liver. And, our gut all take turns during those hours. So our spleen also rests between 11 and 2 p.m. 2 a.m.
2 a.m.
Yeah. So your lifestyle has to change a little bit, in order to accommodate all those changes. But it's good for you, and you feel the difference, after, say, just a couple of weeks, I would say.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the most, I think, obvious things that we should follow. If we are nature. The sun comes up, sun goes down. If we're going against all of nature in its rhythm, it's probably not going to benefit us over a long period of time.
No, it's really bad for you. I used to work the graveyard shift as a news reporter. And when I had to work this graveyard shift, I had to sleep during the day. And it did quite a number on my body. And I actually had to pair up with like a Chinese herbalist who gave me herbs to ensure that I could go through that transition well. But even then, I couldn't do it. It's so bad for you.
Yeah, and people will get used to anything. I know guys that work all night and sleep, go to sleep at 5 a.m. and get up at 11, and they still do it. I'm like, just because you've changed your system doesn't mean it's good for you, right? That's the weird thing about humans. It's the good part and the bad part. We can get used to almost anything and adapt, but what are we adapting to is really the big issue, right?
Right. But you should, like sleeping between 11 and 2 a.m. isn't that difficult if you only want to sleep 3 hours, okay? And
don't make excuses for other people, Mom.
Yeah.
Well, you can do something beneficial to yourself. That's all we are saying. Like drinking some monk fruit during the fire season. It's tasty, it's good. Those are easy things to follow. If you don't want to cook soup, we have a lot of drinks in the book that takes 3 minutes to do it. So you can try that out as well.
I love that. And drinks are so easy to
Yes.
incorporate, right? And
Right.
and
Very
create your own high functional beverages. It's fantastic,
right. Yes.
So what do you think, what are some things that you're seeing? I mean, you have this incredible book that is there to fortify us, both of you. Rose, starting with you, what do you think's the biggest obstacles and challenges for people today that are keeping them from their optimal health?
I think most people do not want to change their lifestyle. They're used to certain things. To bring them back to nature and enjoy what the universe gives us seems to be, I don't know why it's hard, but if they just try to make even a few drinks for themselves and do a little bit of change to their regular routine, they will realize that it makes a big difference in a very short period of time. We go on all these, we try to promote this going back to nature lifestyle to make people realize that, especially during the pandemic, I think it's a good time for people to start looking at how they have been living all these years. And do they really feel it's better for them? Are they really happy? Or they have a lot of anxiety? Then maybe they can think about changing, right? To make themselves healthier. If you're not healthy, you're not happy, because nobody's sick and feel happy, right? You notice your mood changes because you're not healthy. So if you want to be happy, you have to change it, right? Hopefully, people will realize that happiness has a lot to do with your health. It's not
mental
just
health, yeah.
your mental health. And then we focus on, just exercising our muscles and all that, but exercising our organs is very important. The inside is actually more important than the outside, which our culture doesn't seem to emphasize a lot. So if you want to look young, it's not just doing a lot of plastic surgery and tons of makeup, all kinds of things onto your face and your skin. It's what you eat that makes you healthy. When you're healthy, you radiate from inside out. You can feel the difference. You can see the difference.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Genevieve, what are you thinking that are challenges for people right now? I mean, Rose brought up I'm pretty flexible, but stubbornness, definitely people get locked. They want things the way they want. It's almost like we've gotten too relaxed, and we've gotten too much in a certain sense, like hit a button and it gets delivered to us, like that kind of thing. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges for people in their health right now?
Wow, there are so many challenges. I'm very much an anti-radiation, anti-microwave, anti any sort of electrical signal kind of person.
Beautiful.
So I would say that the biggest obstacle is making time for yourself to be in nature, whether it's every day or once a week, and just to be in nature for hours so that your body can heal. I think that is one of the biggest obstacles, is that we do not remove ourselves from modern society and to tap into a natural environment. In terms of Chinese herbs, I think my mom would agree with me. We are seeing people drink the wrong teas and eat the wrong types of ginseng all the time. We see people eating herbs the wrong way, and they don't realize that they're harming themselves. Again, it's failing to understand what traditional Chinese medicine is, and understanding, like you said before, that it's about your whole body and not just one organ, you know.
You brought up some really good stuff. I mean, the EMFs is
terrible.
It's an invisible pollution too. That is,
it's the invisible pollutions. I think that's the biggest obstacle that we're facing
that's
now.
a challenge, because it's not like we're not seeing it hit us. If we could see those microwaves and those radio waves and those EMF waves, if they could see them hitting our bodies, we would freak out, right? And but what you said is a real, it's a solution, because I think the stat is like 93% of our lives are indoors. That's the average modern day, which is exactly the opposite of how we kind of evolved as upright beings, right? So if we can then go, hey, I need to back off, take my shoes off, get out in the sunshine, hang out next to a tree, breathe in some of her oxygen, and just kind of desensitize ourselves from this modern day world. And it's funny because it's gotten this biohacking spin, which is so insane. It's just like, no, it's common sense. The way we're living isn't congruent with optimal health or living. And so, I mean, just those little, again, these are little things that you're all saying here that added up over time can have massive effect on the body. And I want to emphasize that because it's not, again, you're saying also like the misuse of herbology, and that comes by way of marketing and people wanting to also sell things that may or may not have an understanding of where the plant was from, how it was processed, what the hell it actually is, how do you really use it, when do you use it? Like it is a whole thing.
Really research and really ask somebody who knows,
Exactly.
Well, you have to take things at the right season. It's just like in wintertime, you don't want to drink a cup of ice water, right? It really freezes you up inside. So those things are very simple to do. You drink warm things during wintertime, you drink lighter things in summertime, but people don't seem to realize it. Like in springtime, there's a lot of fog in certain part of our countries, and so you try to avoid the fog in the morning, but they still go run out to exercise and absorb all that fog into the fog is moisture at the wrong time, put it that way, right? But people can't change. They are stubborn. They say that, exercise is good, I have to run, I'm not running in the fog, my dear.
It's and again, these things are, the great thing about traditional Chinese medicine is it's been used and utilized and reused and applied for thousands of years. So as people are hearing this, it's really from, like you said, Genevieve, taking something in and receiving it, and also being the advocate of yourself. And that's an inner thing. That is a direct connection that takes a cultivation. It takes a stopping. It takes the head from taking a back seat, and to be able to literally be more conscious of everything that you're doing. And just like you were saying, Rose, it's like, I just need to exercise. Well, you never really consulted how your body's doing, what it really wants, when it wants it. You're just forcing it into an idea. And that idea was probably coming from somewhere else, from someone else that had no idea who you are, what you're doing. And it really, and we just adopt this stuff, and we've lost this common sense. And I think you've both said it. I think there's a silver lining in the pandemic. I think there is, from a cosmic perspective, I think there's a beautiful timeout. There's a beautiful timeout. And like, okay, let's take some self-inventory here. don't miss the opportunity, because yeah, we're going to get through all of this. It's going to go back. We're going to and things are going to speed up, and they already are, but don't miss the opportunity. And that's what I think, getting people to just nurture themselves and go inside and listen is I think an underutilized superpower that we all have.
Yeah, we're hoping more and more people just get back to nature now. Well, most people have. I think a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what the pandemic is really about.
We have to make the pandemic productive instead of destructive, right?
Amen to that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Our website is called healingherbalsoups.com.
Yep.
You can go there. You can buy our book in a lot of places. We're in a lot of countries now. US, UK, India, Australia, your favorite.
There you go.
And we're available on Amazon, Target, Simon & Schuster's website, just all over. So you can order that online. And if you don't live near a Chinese pharmacy, when you're buying ingredients for our recipes, you can always purchase them from our store online. We work with a really prominent herbal supplier in California called Wong, which is a huge franchise. They have a lot of herbs, and they supply our herbs for us. And we just hope, whoever's out there who's listening, to just go back, get in tune with nature and the herbal lifestyle, and start to detoxify, cleanse, and moisturize your body and keep it in check.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And you've created a great opportunity to get nature inside the body through this way. And I just, this has been such a awesome conversation and such a pleasure to meet both of you. And I can't wait for other people to know and to experience what it is that you put together, and the generations that this has been passed down to you, so that you can then get it out to as wide as a population as possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Come on the show.